a lot of people cover wars, right? A lot of people cover wars like Ukraine. A lot of people cover wars such as Israel and other places, but not a lot of people actually cover the aftermath of the war, which is the refugee crises that it creates. Right? Not many people are really diving into. I mean, Ukrainian refugees got some attention. That is sort of what happened, and Ukrainian refugees were sort of in a special position in a way that they were en masse accepted in countries like Poland and other countries in Europe. But there are many refugees that are not as fortunate. What's wrong with my hair? There are many refugees that are not as fortunate, and we're gonna be talking about such topic today, starting with this. Because today was the first sort of meeting of the Polish parliament. There were a lot of interesting things going on, like when the chosen candidate by the president, the current prime minister Morawiecki, said that he will definitely get the majority in the Sejm to get him chosen as the prime minister, and the entirety of the same room started laughing out loud. They all started laughing at him when he said that he'll definitely become prime minister. So that's a bit of a thing. But let's go to our topic because it's kind of important. Because just because we might get a new government, it does not sort of guarantee or follow that automatically the Polish Belarusian border thing will become better. Does it? No, it absolutely does not. And in fact, uh, activists already have started sort of protesting during the first meeting of the Sejm against pushback, which is basically when refugees are brutally pushed back behind the Belarusian border. Protest under the Sejm against pushback to stop the non-humanitarian practices. We just need one signature from the new um, internal affairs minister. So, a large part of the opposition is basically celebrating victory. The activists bring back the topic of pushback. People keep dying in forests. There is an ongoing humanitarian crisis, says Danuta Kuroń, who took part in the sort of protest near the Sejm. We demand immediate action from the new minister of internal affairs. So some meters from the protesters during the first day of the new, it's parliament. It's basically parliament. It's part of the parliament. Well, they're not fleeing Belarus, actually. They are fleeing Afghanistan, for example, after the war. They have refugees like from Afghanistan, for example. Um, A group of some people has gathered demanding immediately action when it comes to the humanitarian crisis on the Polish-Belarusian border. The protest was organized by Beata Siemaszko and Michał Sutyniec. Yeah. Why are we here? It's very easy. Today is the first sort of gathering of the Sejm, the new Sejm. And thanks to this lineup of the Sejm, the opposition is supposed to win. We know we have a lot to fix, but we have to remind politicians about the situation on the border. Out there, in the forests, people are dying, said Danuta Koroń, an activist, to Gazeta Wyborcza. This is a bit different. This is a bit different from that. The protesters demand immediate decisions in this matter and to cancel, or rather put, like, call back the order signed by the Ministry of Internal Affairs in 2021. This document allowed to sort of turn back people to the border in an inhumane way, and its text stands against the Constitution and also against the law which is part of the international law, writes the Human Rights Representatives Bureau. Stop pushback. And these are the, as you can see, these are the people that sort of died because of the crisis. See? Hourglasses which commemorate the victims of the humanitarian crisis on the Polish-Belarusian border. Photo made by Dawid Żuchowicz. Yeah, that's a big part of it, unironically, yeah. That is a big part of it. There's been an interview when it comes to this, and that is actually unironically the case. So yeah. The new minister can and even must sort of take back that sort of order law at the same day he takes office, adds Eva Błaszczyk, an activist that was present at Wiejska Street during the protest. The protesters demand to stop building additional barriers at the border alongside the wall because Poland built the wall. What they are referring to are the barbed wires, which are at the height of a grown person, and they are they're a lethal danger to both humans as well as animals. And there's even a separate article about the fact that on the Polish-Belarusian border, in great suffering, many animals are dying because they get tangled up in the barbed wire on the border. So we have a humanitarian crisis as well as an ecological crisis to top it off. And we have postcards from the border. The protest was accompanied by an artistic installation of a performer, Aurora Lubos, titled Postcards from the Border. The artist documents in that installation stories from the border uh, and tries to spread them far and wide so that as many people will know of the tragedies of the people there and of the horror that's happening at the border. So that this problem does not, so that the public does not become indifferent to this problem. The protest was done in silence. The organizers have written very shortly. One sign, that is all that is needed for pushbacks which are against Polish law and international law stopped being a thing. One signature chose by the new chosen minister, by the new democratic majority, is all that's needed. Not long ago, the border group has informed about the 52nd um, victim on the Polish-Belarusian border. '52nd uh, victim found on the border. Yesterday, 4th, 11th, so that was like 10 days ago. A body of a woman was found on the Polish-Belarusian, near the Polish-Belarusian border, as informed by the activists from the Podlaski um, volunteer humanitarian aid group. The victim was 23 years old, came from Syria, and was searched for a week now. So the man's body was found in a forest. 23-year-old Syrian that was just trying to flee to safety became the victim of the humanitarian crisis on the border. People involved in the protests were people from the border group, human rights activists from Warsaw, and a few people from the initiative Soup for the Border. Additional action is planned to pressure the parliament from the opposition side for the pushbacks to stop being a grim calling card of eastern border of the European Union, said the organizers of the protest. And it's not really just a problem here. The problem of it's basically a worldwide problem, the refugee crisis, and I believe it's just going to get worse. I don't think that especially since the European Union is becoming increasingly anti immigrant, which means that I'm not entirely sure if the change in the government guarantees that the border crisis will necessarily end, if that makes sense. And I think we will be taking more direct action when it comes to these things in the near semi near future. Does that make sense? We're gonna be going back to this topic for sure. We're gonna be coming back to this topic for sure. I'm going to probably contact the border organization to have a little bit of a more direct talk with them. I just I'm just not so sure if the change of in the government is going to do anything about this. We already see it getting worse globally, especially against Muslim immigrants. Syrian refugees in the Middle East or Afghanistan and Pakistan, for example, is very. I mean, just from this article, look at this. 52nd victim found on the Polish Belarusian border. Who was the victim? Who was the refugee? 23-year-old from Syria, right? A 23-year-old from Syria was the latest victim of the Polish Belarusian border. Because that's basically the who the victims of those are. People from Syria, from Afghanistan and places like that. Places that can take refugees need to be more willing than ever. So now we will be seeing more and more refugees due to climate change, among other things. We'll be just seeing more and more of these refugee crises, and I'm going to have to talk about this more because our focus is on wars, as I said, which is I, it's not a bad thing that our like the focus on coverage is on wars, right? It's a good thing. We need coverage of wars, but I feel like we sort of forget that wars also have their aftermaths, that wars also have create refugees, and once wars create those refugees, we sort of forget about those refugees. We forget to cover the atrocities that happen to those refugees. We sort of Does that make sense? And as I said at the beginning of this whole thing, um, refugees from Ukraine were in a pretty unique position in the fact that they were accepted by the millions, and for example in Poland, given special status, that meant that Ukrainian people in Poland receive social services that Polish people do. So for example, one of the things that Ukrainian refugees in Poland receive is that the so-called 500 plus, that if a person has children, then for every child you receive like 500 zlotys monthly for each child. And Ukrainian refugees can sort of be part of this social program as well, which is interesting in reverse because as a response to this, some time ago, Ukraine introduced a law that students that go to Ukraine, and people that go to work in Ukraine from Poland basically receive rights that are very similar to citizens, and can also apply for all the social programs that are in Ukraine. So it became this mutual program thing. That was, of course, before the. I don't think that law was revoked, but that law was sort of put in place when before the Law and Justice Party screwed up the relations between Poland and Ukraine, which I'm hoping the new government will normalize. But yes, most refugees are not as lucky. In most cases, in refugee crisis, this sort of thing happens. And let me check something, please. No, not here. Ah, I get it. Okay. There's this foundation that takes that does a lot of work when it comes to um, the refugee crisis, and I'm going to be trying to contact them soon ish. Let's take a look, okay? Let's take a look. The border, the border, the Salvation Foundation. Very rarely has the border between good and evil been so visible. This is like a very clear sort of, this is sort of just describing the Polish-Belarusian border. Never before has the line between good and evil, the border between good and evil, so visible. On the border, on the Polish-Belarusian border, um, horrible things are happening, shameful things are happening. We are here from the beginning of the crisis because we believe that a safe border is a border where nobody dies. We constantly monitor the situation. We give humanitarian aid and legal aid to um, refugees of all genders. We try to speak loudly about the matter. We lobby. And on site, we have created a temporary base of our foundation. We utilize the knowledge we have gathered throughout the 20 years of our activity, and you can support us here. As you can see, this is like damn. So this is how much you can spend, and this is what that amount of money gives you. Oh. 25 złotys. A 4-pack of Nutri drinks. Nutri drinks are probably those nutritious drinks you can get at the pharmacy. 50 złotys will give you a food package. 100 złotys Translation during a night intervention. A night intervention is when a group of activists basically goes out without using any light, without using any, as quietly as possible, while avoiding the border patrol, of course, to seek out refugees that are trying to make their way through a swamp, a forest, and to help them. 150 will give you a package with warm clothing and shoes, thermic blankets, and power bank. You can see all of these are pretty sort of important things that are being given to the refugees. 300. Um, a canister of fuel for a help group. 500 zlotys will give you legal help for a single refugee. 1,000 zlotys, which is basically in dollars, something along the ballpark of $250. Um, Finding a place to stay, like a place to sleep for a help group near the border for a week. That's like 1,000. And you can sort of pay a one-time fee, or you can sort of subscribe in a way. You can donate items. You can talk about the situation, which is what we're doing. Take part in demonstration and happenings in your neighborhood, or organize them. See the list of upcoming events. For example, in Warsaw, we um, encourage you to write every day on the sidewalk a message for the border patrol. Talk with your friends and family. Explain the situation to them. And also debunk fake news. Use live meeting and social media, which is basically what we're using now. If you have a possibility to get media and international organizations interested in this, do so, which we will. Do you live in Warsaw? Through us, you can help refugees that are already in Poland. We are looking for translators of Arabic, Farsi, Kurmanji, Sorani, and Pashto. And so on and so forth. So yeah. Oh my gosh, has someone donated? Thank you, Maya Mayor, for $27. Oh my god. Thank you so much for this. Thank you. It's like almost at 1,000 subs. Woo, yes, that's right. We're getting close. We're getting pretty close. So if you've enjoyed this segment about, if you found it, maybe not enjoyed, if you found this segment about the refugee crisis interesting, then press like, subscribe, hit the bell. Uh, yes. And get, you know, get people interested in it as it's like a very important topic. So right, let's go to the next thing for today, which I'm gonna find. Uh, Speaking of the refugees, there was a very important thing. The first meeting of the Polish Parliament. I'm gonna take a look at this article. Uh, this is very funny and very sad for one of the camps. So this is the context of the meeting, of the protest happening about the refugees. The context is this. Poland's Poland's parliament convenes as two opposing camps claim victory in its national elections. All right? Oh. The Polish parliament is holding its first meeting since the country's October elections, as two opposing camps are claiming victory and aspiring to form the government. And let's be honest, the Law and Justice Group has little to no chance of doing that. Poland's President Andrzej Duda has announced that his own right wing Law and Justice Party will form the country's government despite it not winning enough seats in the latest election, which is very interesting. Andrzej Duda has sort of proposed the current prime minister as the candidate for being again the prime minister. And when he said today during the parliament's meeting that he will build a majority in the Sejm, the whole Sejm just started laughing. The whole room just started laughing at him. Nobody takes this seriously. Nobody seriously believes that the Law and Justice Party is going to be able to build somehow miraculously a majority in the Sejm. It's just impossible. Well, three opposition factions, which together won the parliamentary majority, decided to sign a coalition agreement. So it's basically game over. They signed the coalition contract. It's over. Law and Justice has nobody to get the majority from. The Law and Justice Party has 194 seats out of 460 against a declared majority of 248 deputies who are members of the allied pro-European groups, Donald Tusk's centrist electoral coalition, the Christian Democratic Third Way, and the left. The ultra-nationalist far right, which is distancing itself from the two main camps, has 18 MEPs. The coalition is seen as a declaration of stable shared governance and is intended as a policy statement of the future government as soon as the opposition comes to power. We really want Poles to be able to see that from now on, we are ready to take responsibility for our country, explained Donald Tusk. Which we'll see. There is some internal friction within the coalition. And one of the biggest sources of that friction is, of course, the Third Way, which is the most conservative sort of group within the coalition. It already is creating some friction when it comes to um, things like abortion, LGBT rights, and many other things. So that's a potential problem. The document sent out the document sets out the Allies' position on burning issues such as the country's economic and environmental management, the rebuilding of its relationships with the European Union and Ukraine for that matter, the reconstruction of the public media, the separation of church and state, and abortion. And we've already seen some hiccups when it comes to the abortion topic. We must start with the reconstruction of our relations with the European Union institutions, understood as reaching the moment when the funds are resumed. EU funds, which today are blocked for Poland, Michał Kobosko, a member of Third Way, said. I mean, that is a pretty pressing matter. Um, Specifically, the funds from the European Union are blocked for Poland for reasons such as the Law and Justice Party, and ironically enough, with its name, meddling with the courts, and also because of the LGBT free zones. That's also a thing. We must start with the reconstruction, blah blah blah. Is of course connected to the principles of law, with the order of law in Poland and the European Commission will want to see changes in the rule of law regarding the independence of Polish judges, Polish courts. If Morawiecki's mission to form a government fails, the opposition will not take the reins of power until mid-December. What a comment! Polish fascists need to step down and head to their ideological homeland, Russia. Hopefully, they will be in jail someday soon. And yes, one of the stated goals of the new government is to bring the Law and Justice Party to law and justice, to make it sort of pay for all of the law breaking that it's been indulging in, if that makes sense. That's it. And so we will see. Like, this the situation is not super easy. The Law and Justice is stalling for time, and within the coalition itself, we have a little bit of a problem of the Third Way, which will probably try to push more conservative ideas. So left-leaning ideas might have there might be compromise. I'm just gonna use these terms. The only mention of the LGBT in the coalition contract is that any discrimination based on gender and sexuality will be prosecuted by law, which is not saying anything basically. That's nothing. It's no mention of simplifying things for trans people, no mention of gay marriage, no mention of gay abortion. None of these things are just. So just because the opposition has won, it does not mean that we are out of the woods, the proverbial woods, just yet.